Everyone, welcome to Clean Coder YouTube channel. So today we are going to discuss something different. Today we are going to discuss tips and tricks for online assessment test. So this might be useful for anyone who is appearing for campus placements. Okay, anybody who is appearing for campus placements would need to give online assessment, and then he can only appear for campus interviews. So online assessment is important for them, and anyone who is literally switching companies, even then he need to give online assessment to appear for technical interviews. So I believe, like, if you know certain tips and tricks in online assessment, it would help in like easier interview experience of the organization. So let's get started. So before understanding tips and tricks, let's just question why companies take online assessment. Okay, so the answer is pretty straightforward. Like, online assessment helps in 90% candidates filtering. So lesser interviews needs to be conducted, so obviously organizations save on the bandwidth to conduct so many interviews, and they need so many people to conduct so many interviews. So if there are lesser number of candidates in the pool, obviously they need to bring in less number of interviewers, and thereby saving their valuable resources. So this is the main reason why companies place online assessment right in front of their hiring process. So in the next slide, let's discuss the common format of the online assessment. So generally, there are 3 to 4 programming questions asked, and the time limit is between 90 to 120 minutes. Like, you would commonly receive a link to some platform like HackerEarth or HackerRank. Like, these are 2 common platforms which most of the companies use to conduct their online assessment, but again this can vary. So this is the common format, but I have seen, like, sometimes companies change their format also, and there are sometimes MCQ questions also. So sometimes there are 10 to 20 MCQ questions, and they ask various things. Like, for the freshers, it can include OS concepts, networking concepts, and simple Java concepts, OOPS concepts, and so on and so forth. And for the experienced folks, this can include OOPS concepts and REST API concepts and various other concepts. So this is commonly seen that sometimes companies ask these sort of MCQs also in online assessment itself. So in order to crack these online tests, obviously you need to be prepared, but now I'll share you some tips which will help you in which will make you more probable in clearing these rounds. So let's get started. Let's move to the first tip. So first tip is like this you can do something well before your online assessment. So what you can do is read the latest LeetCode or Geek4Geeks interview experiences. So what usually happens, and what I have seen while talking to my peers, is that companies don't make a lot of questions for online assessment. So let's say there are going to be 3 sets. Okay, 3 sets, and each with 3 questions. Okay, 3 to 4 problems. So if you have seen these 3 sets already in prior interview experience at LeetCode or Geeks4Geeks, so what would happen is, like, you would already you have already encountered these questions, and you would already know the approaches to tackle these kinds of problems. So you would already be prepared. So, like, this is a great tip. Like, I have seen this really helps a lot. and sometimes if luck is in your favor, you will get the exactly same questions. So which means your online assessment shortlisting chances are 100%, which is great. Like most of the candidates gets filtered in the online assessment stage only, so you have short chance to bypass this stage if you are already prepared. So this is the first tip. Let's check what is the second tip. So this is the tip which you need to follow while giving the online assessment. So what you can do is, instead of like if the problem is like this is the problem number 1, this is problem number 2, this is problem number 3, instead of trying to solve problem number first completely and then moving on to the problem number 2 and then moving to the problem number 3, what I'll recommend you doing is read the problem statement of problem number 1 completely, read the problem statement of problem number 2 completely, read the problem statement of problem number 3 completely. Now make an order based on difficulties of problem. Suppose problem number 2 is the easiest, so make order like attempt problem number 2 at the first place, and suppose problem number 3 you feel slightly difficult than problem number 2, so place this problem number 3 next, and if you feel problem number 1 is difficult, attempt it at the end. This way you would ensure that you would be attempting maximum number of problems completely. And what usually happens is, let's say this problem number 1 is the most difficult problem of this online assessment, so nobody would be able to completely solve and submit this problem. So what would happen is, even if someone has partially submitted some of the test cases, he might have an edge over others. So this is a great strategy for online assessment. So let's move to the next tip now. So next tip if I want to talk about is, if you find any problem super difficult, at least try to pass some test cases. So this was what I was telling in the previous slide also. So if problem number 1 is super difficult, like rather than leaving this problem completely, at least try to pass 1, 2 to 3 test cases. Like even if you partially submit this problem, you have edge over the others. Your marks, your points would be more than the others. So like you would have more chances to qualify the online test if you have submitted most of the problems completely and one problem partially. So this approach, this tip is also quite useful in that case. So let's move to the tip number 4 now. So tip number 4 is try to solve the problem with the brute force approach first. And if it times out, like there is time limit exceeded error or similar error, try to optimize only then. Like what I have seen sometime is that people try to optimize their code so much, even in online test also. Like what happens sometimes in online assessment is the time limit is given quite liberally. Like there is a lot of time limit given to a problem. Like for say they're giving a time limit of 5 seconds, so any solution would pass this 5-second time limit constraint. So you need not apply any rocket science to optimize your code and doing all the like really complicated optimizations. What you can do is simply try to write the logic in brute force and try to submit it and get the complete points. And if in case you are not able to submit your brute force solution, only in that case you need to optimize it and try to reduce its time complexity, and if possible try to optimize it further. So this tip you also need to take care in your mind, and this might also sometimes help you a lot while solving online assessments. So let's move to the next step now. So this is the great tip. I'll say this is the most valuable tip which I would give to anyone appearing for the online assessment. like collection framework in Java, you need to be through with all the collections which are used, like array list, linked list, and all the containers like hash map and so on and so forth, like trees, everything you need to be through with collection framework. And for those guys who use CPP, there are STL libraries and there are vectors and so on, other containers are there. So you need to have a really good grasp over these STL libraries, and these STL containers might save a lot of time of you over someone who is coding these collections from scratch. So you need to know these frameworks and libraries in and out, and also use the library functions. Like there are functions for calculating power and square root. Don't act foolish and try to write the code for this on your own. Nobody is actually seeing your code. Nobody is going to audit your online assessment code. Everybody is going to see the number of points which you got in your assessment. So try to use these functions and try to save some time and bandwidth. So this is the fifth tip I want to give: to study collection framework and STL libraries through in and out. So let's move to the next tip now. So this is also, I would say, a good tip. Like for instance, if your online assessment is on Hacker Earth platform, okay, Hacker Earth platform. So what would happen is Hacker Earth would send you a link 3 to 4 days prior to the actual assessment. Okay, so what you can do in this 3 to 4 days is you can familiarize yourself with the ID of the Hacker Earth. Okay, this is the Hacker Earth website, let's say Hacker Earth website. So you try submitting 3-4 problems. Like you can see how the input is given, how the output is taken, and how the submit button is there, and how the test function is there, and like submit button, test button, and various buttons. You familiarize yourself with the UI of the Hacker Earth or Hacker Rank. So that this is because you don't want to feel any friction because of this UI, or because of these buttons, or because of input or output, so that your performance in online assessment gets ruined. So if you put in this much effort prior to giving online assessment, I'm sure like this would work out great. So yeah, these were all the 6 tips I wanted to talk about in this session. So if you have any other tip which you want to share with the community, please feel free to add that in the comment section. And if you find any tip worth debating, or you want to add something in any of the tip which I have shared, or you want to correct it or anything, please feel free to add that in the comment section. And this was all I wanted to talk about, these tips. So if you have watched my video till here, I will please request you to subscribe my channel, Clean Coder,